You know what I don't like is giving blood for testing purposes, like during an annual physical or something like that. It's like they take way too much for what they need to do.
Yeah, like you get the cavalcade of tests,
Yeah.
and by about vial 3, you
Yeah.
start to wonder,
Like,
what are you guys really doing with this?
History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
And we are staying in Instagram for a moment to read a message from Sam. Sam in Japan, in fact. Here we go. This is what you said, Sam. So I just heard your listener mail episode, and I want to say I, too, cannot donate blood or organs or bone marrow due to living in Germany on a U.S. base in the late 1980s. My father was stationed there, and we lived on base. The reasoning is that the beef that was on base was sourced from the United Kingdom during its mad cow outbreak. As a result, I've done a ton of reading on prions, and they're fascinating and terrifying, and honestly, might make a good episode all their own. Did you know that they literally cause the proteins in your brain to refold like origami, leaving gaps? And that each protein that misfolds then touches another, causing it to misfold, and so on? Also, I'm supposed to tell any surgeons that I've been exposed because any gear they use should be destroyed. Whoa. Autoclaves, intense heat and pressure for sterilizing things like scalpels and the like, probably won't kill prions. We have absolutely no idea how to kill them if they exist. Finally, they can activate at any given time, from immediately after exposure to decades later, which could be a huge problem because at least where I grew up, chronic wasting in deer is the same as mad cow. And basically, everyone in the North Woods of Wisconsin hunts. Well, that's a terrifying idea, Sam.
Yeah. Sam, when I go through the Conspiracy Stuff Show messages, as always, thank you to everyone who writes in. And this stood out to me because it confirms more in depth some of the stuff one of our earlier conspiracy realists told us, and it also gets confirmed again in Instagram. Travis, you wrote to us and responded to listener mail saying the following. The vet that was in Germany in 1989 or 1990 and couldn't give blood. Responding to this, I was born in 1990, 3.5 months premature. I was given a lot of blood transfusions. I have never been allowed to donate blood. I wish I could, as it saved my life. I get you there, Travis. It's the rule here in the United Kingdom and Ireland that anyone who had a blood transfusion in the years between 1980 to 1996 can't donate blood ever, which is a huge chunk of the population. This is something that I think a lot of people in the United States are not aware of, right? You hear about blood shortages, right? At least I hear about it a lot in the vampire forums, but, we've been saying that since the 1600s, there's just never enough blood. But now it's affecting humans too, and I wonder, Matt, you and I talked about this a while back on our previous listener mail segment, with how risk averse a lot of the blood donation organizations and institutions are by necessity, and how it's very difficult to test for these prions. But what's your experience giving blood been?
It's been pretty tremendous. Every time I've done it, I've not experienced any adverse effects other than just being a little hungry afterwards.
But that's what you get, the crackers,
Yeah.
You get the juice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think just knowing that you are giving life, like as both listeners say, like especially Travis, it's a tremendous feeling knowing that you are giving literally lifeblood so that somebody else can be helped, right? It's a part of you. Someone else is going to benefit from that. And you don't need all that blood because your body keeps making it, pal. You know what I don't like is giving blood for testing purposes, like during an annual physical or something like that.
Yeah.
Feels like they take way too much for what they need to do.
I know. When you, like you get the cavalcade of tests,
Yeah.
and by about vial 3, you start to wonder,
Like,
what are you guys really doing with this? Right?
It seems like you could combine those processes, right? If you're ever going to get an annual physical, you take a certain amount of blood, which, a proportion of it would be donated, and however much you need could be tested. But you do testing first, then donation.
Well, let's break it down. The average person has about, if you're human, you have about 5 liters of blood in your body.
That's
or 10 to 11 pints, which maybe doesn't sound like as much. And
think about taking down 10 or 11 pints of beer.
That's
and
what I was
imagine
thinking
it's
too.
Filled with blood.
I know. Knowing that, and I'm playing with different measurements here, when you are donating blood, or whole blood, as it would be called, the ideal amount to collect is about 500 milliliters. But they'll go down to a minimum of 460 milliliters. And the total blood volume, of course, your mileage may vary. It depends on your height, your weight, etc. And for some people, depending on your blood type, you are, I don't want anybody to feel dismissed here, but there's some blood types that are just practically more usable, right? Like if you have a blood type that has no platelets, then you are a universal donor, you're in that type O city, then everybody wants your blood, right? and this stuff is incredibly important, and it gets ignored often. As a matter of fact, I can't remember, I think I mentioned this on air, maybe during that segment, Matt, but one of the ways you can tell if a military force is really getting into a sustained operation, when they start setting up their infrastructure, they start transporting blood too for injuries.
Really?
Isn't that weird? That's a weird way to tell if you can get that information. Yeah.
Yeah. If the blood is moving, so does the army. That's really weird.
I know. Don't tell CNN, because then they're going to make it a whole weird kitschy thing, and they'll be like, all right, now we've got our meteorologist doing the blood report for the conflict in, insert country here, whichever one this week.
Just thinking back to the awesome response we got from, I think it was Jasper, about, it was the BIA or the, oh man, I've already forgotten it. It was so smart, I've already forgotten it. But it was just the CIA, the body's CIA equivalent, where the intelligence agency figures out what all the stuff is in the body. I'm just seeing these weird comparisons with the blood flow, like literally blood flowing on a macro scale somewhere before the troops arrive, or in this case, the white blood cells arrive to attack something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.